All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets here for this Thursday night showdown matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks. Let's go and get into it. So guys, right now the Seattle Seahawks are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Looking at the game total, it is kind of a lower scoring game at 43.5 points. There are two things that we need to kind of start with. We'll get into kind of the injury situation for the Seahawks in just a second, but I want to talk about the weather to start. So I'm not expecting the weather to play a factor in tomorrow's game, and actually it's going to be relatively nice tomorrow. Depending on where you look, the weather is going to be anywhere between 40 degrees to about 50, which is pretty darn good for this time of year. Looking at the wind as well, again, depending where you look, going to be between 5 and like 12 mile per hour winds, so really non-fact. Weather should not be a factor. There is a slight chance of precipitation, depending on where you look. It might say about 20%, which is what it says on Google if you just do a quick Google search, to about 40%. Obviously, if it does start to rain, that could change the dynamic of the game, so I did want to call that out. But for the most part, for a near January game, the weather for Chicago is going to be pretty darn good. Now, guys, that could end up being pretty darn important here, especially for the Seattle run game. So the Seahawks running backs get a very good matchup. The issue here, and we're not getting prop bets as I'm recording this video, and we probably won't until we get this confirmation, is that Kenneth Walker is currently questionable. If he were to sit, that does kind of create some, I don't want to say issues, but a little bit of a question in regards to playing time here. Okay, so Kenneth Walker questionable. If he plays, what is his snap count going to be? He had 58% of the snaps last week. Okay, that was great, but he ended up getting injured, and it was actually Kenny McIntosh who ended up getting a decent amount of work. He got 20% of the work in that game. And my thought process is that, okay, they kind of game plan for Kenneth Walker's skill set rather than Sharm's kind of skill set, if you will, because McIntosh is much more closely to the type of running back that Kenneth Walker is than Zach Sharm. And so with that, I think that's why we saw him get work. Now, that wasn't really an outlier in terms of his percent snaps total when Kenneth Walker has been off the field. But what was a little bit shocking is just the total amount of snaps that Zach Sharm saw in that game. He only saw 22% of the snaps in that game. Now, he was coming into that game with an injury there as well. So it is very tough to gauge there. Now, we do know that in the two games recently where Kenneth Walker was out, we saw Zach Sharm get a decent amount of work. He had 79% in both of the games recently with Kenneth Walker off the court, and Kenny McIntosh only got 25 and 16%. Now, I do like Kenny McIntosh as a player. Like, it wouldn't be surprising to see him get work. He is kind of a dynamic playmaker there as well, whereas Zach Sharm kind of more of a bruiser. And so this is important because the Chicago Bears are pretty poor defensively against opposing running backs. They've given up the second most rushing touchdowns in the league at about 16. They've also given up the second most rushing yards. So they've given up an average of 117 rushing yards per game. And so it'll be interesting kind of the news that comes out, because more than likely we're going to want to be attacking some over rushing props here for either Zach Sharm or potentially even Kenny McIntosh as well if Kenneth Walker sits. If Kenneth Walker plays and he's fully good to go, we might be wanting to bet on his over rush yards. And so I did want to call that out because it is an interesting spot. Now let's go ahead and get into my favorite prop bets. So guys, one of my favorite prop bets is going to be looking at DJ Moore to get over 5.5 receptions. Looking at the data, he only has about a 50% chance per Vegas right now, which to me is a little bit shocking. One, this matchup with Seattle is not a plus or a minus. It's basically even keel. So the production that a player typically gets is kind of what we can expect out of them. And so with DJ Moore, a guy that has consistently gotten this over in some matches that were a little bit more difficult and in some matchups that were a little bit more easy. Now you might be looking at this, seeing Detroit and Minnesota twice. That could skew the data, and it very well could. But the thing with it is DJ Moore is playing a lot of snaps, guys, playing 90% of the snaps. And typically speaking, the Bears are playing from behind, which they are in this game as well, which should lead to some more receptions for him. Now, I want to call this out again with the Chicago Bears. Typically speaking, especially with Caleb Williams, he plays better in the second half. So you could potentially be looking at some live second half bets for the Chicago Bears. That might be the approach on the slate. That's a little bit easier to do on Underdog for me. I just like how they have it set up a little bit better, but you guys could do that on PrizePicks as well. And for what it's worth, guys, with the targets as well for DJ Moore, he's getting the targets there as well. 10, 8, 8, 16, 7, 7, 6, 4, 4. And another part of the wrinkle here as well is once they got rid of their old offensive coordinator, DJ Moore has gone this over in every single game with that new offensive coordinator. Part of the reason is they're getting Caleb Williams, they're getting him to get the ball out faster. And it's by design as well. So a little bit shorter routes, which is obviously easier completions, and DJ Moore has been the benefactor of that. Now, a player that's basically doing the exact same role too as, well, not same role, but same production as DJ Moore has been Keenan Allen, -1 game against San Francisco where he only had 5 targets and 3 receptions. But he still is playing over 90% of the snaps as well. And so, although I don't feel like this is much like as big of an edge to us for him to get over his receptions, I still don't hate it. And the issue with Keenan Allen is that we're going to have to either do a goblin bet or a demon bet. And honestly, this could be a spot where if we were getting at 5.5 receptions, I would be fine kind of betting the over 5.5 receptions, or just kind of shrugging your shoulders and doing a 4.5 receptions total. Typically, I don't like to give out goblin bets. It's like, oh, yeah, bet a highly likely bet to hit. Like that doesn't help anyone out. But if you guys want to attach this to a maybe 5 slip or a 4 slip bet to make it a 5 slip bet, to ensure kind of the flex option, or to, extend a 6 slip or a 5 slip bet into a 6 slip bet, that'd be the approach that I would go with here. Now, both Keenan Allen and also DJ Moore are playing about 90% of the snaps, whereas Rome Odunze has only been playing about 85% of the snaps, right? Right? Like, whatever. The targets have been there for him to get this over consistently. It's just less of a lock and load. The issue is they are doing a lot of 3 receiver sets, and although Caleb Williams has his trust in Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, and they're just a little bit better, it wouldn't be shocking to see, 2 out of the 3 get the rover. That's kind of been my approach with the Bears over the past, really since they've gotten that new offensive coordinator, bet on 2 of the 3 receivers to get their overs. Now, that doesn't mean that they all can't get their overs. That's what they did against Detroit. That could happen. Don't hate that, but I would choose 2 out of the 3. And then, guys, let's go ahead and get into the best bet for this game, actually, is going to be Cole Kmet to get over 4.5 for his fantasy score. So first and foremost, the projection data likes the over there, giving him a projection of 6, which is nice to see. It's also nice to see when the average sportsbook line is also telling us that as well. So 5.3 is going to be his average sportsbook line. We're not getting any underdog data just yet, any lines from underdog just yet. It is always nice to be able to compare fantasy score lines against underdog just to see for sure whether or not we're getting an edge on PrizePicks or not, or potentially maybe we're getting a better edge on something like underdog. I do like to compare that with fantasy score. We're not getting that just yet. Don't know when we're going to get that, so kind of is what it is. Just be on the lookout for that. But do want to call it that the data is heavily favoring the under of 5.5, so chances are, or 5.3, chances are it's going to be around 5. Now let's talk about the reasons as to why this one's popping up as a good bet. Well, we got to show you guys all of his lines right now. So looking at it, guys, like 17.5 is going to be his receiving yards. We see the receptions is set at 2. And so just combining the receiving yards and receptions, he's almost at 4 for a fantasy score right there. Tack on an extra reception, he's got the over. Tack on a little bit extra receiving yards, he's got the over. Tack on a touchdown, which is something he can get, he gets the over there as well. And part of it here, guys, is that Cole Kmet is someone that has also been playing a bunch of snaps and is someone that has been a little bit more productive since that new offensive coordinator / head coach has taken over. Gotta say that because they've had some turnover. So they went from firing their offensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator that took his place, then actually became the interim head coach once they got rid of Eberflus as well. So still, though, we do have a good enough sample size to be able to tell, yeah, this offense has improved during that span. And I do think that the interim head coach, maybe he's got it a little bit better now, a little bit more under control now in terms of, play calling and being the head coach as well. It's a quick turnaround to go from the first-time play caller / offensive coordinator to then a head coach. So obviously he should be a little bit better at handling that workload there as well. But Cole Kmet is someone that has been playing about 90% of the snaps, so a decent line here. And then, guys, just want to call out Caleb Williams real quick. He is someone that is rushing the football more, especially since that kind of new offensive coordinator head coach has kind of taken over, which is what should be happening. I don't mind him to get over 4.5 rush attempts. I actually don't mind his over rush yards as well, especially on PrizePicks where it's at 26.5. But this is not a bet I would go crazy with because quarterback rush attempts are a little bit random. Like, I wish he was getting a few more design runs. Some of them are just him ad-libbing and making a good play. And so I don't exactly need to go on this, but I did want to call that out there for you guys as well. Slight prop line edge there for that rush yards. And then lastly, just for Chicago as well, I want to talk about the running backs. So if it does end up being a game in which it does rain, maybe the field's a little bit more wet, I could see it being more of a Roschon Johnson type game. He's just a bigger back. He has been their goal line back as well. And so I could see that end up happening. I kind of think he'd be a better anytime touchdown bet than Swift, especially if it does end up raining. But I don't want to go crazy with that. That's not a Chris Brooks call out by any means, which was a save the Sunday night or Monday Night Football bets there big time. And then guys, let's go ahead and get into the Seahawks bets. And so just to reiterate, I do think the best value that we're going to get is probably looking at the Seahawks and the running backs, because the Bears' run defense has not been that good, especially with the offense kind of setting them up for failure a bunch as well. And so I want to probably be attacking one of the 3 running backs, but because we're not getting those lines yet, because Kenneth Walker is still questionable, we don't really have that information to go off of. And so looking at right now, the best bet that we have is going to be Geno Smith to throw an INT. This Bears defense has been very good stopping the passing game for opposing teams. And so I don't mind the idea of betting on Geno Smith to throw an INT. That's not a bet that I need to go on my way to target by any means, but it's not terrible. And then from there, are we getting any good prop bets? I actually don't hate the idea of like Jason Myers for over 1.5 field goals made. The Bears do give up a decent amount of kicking points, like the 3rd most, 8.7 per game. A lot of that's due to touchdowns, I understand, but it is an interesting line there that we are getting. Maybe we could just do his fantasy score once that line is out there for Jason Myers, potentially. And then from there, receiving-wise, I really didn't see an edge at all. Like, we could bet on JSN to get under 6.5 receptions, but that's not a good payout bet. There just isn't much there, honestly, for receiving purposes there with Seattle as it sits right now. So kind of unfortunate there. JSN has obviously been great. DK Metcalf finally has a touchdown. It could end up being a Tyler Lockett game. Like, it really takes one catch for Tyler Lockett to get there. I don't hate that idea with JSN and DK Metcalf, having more attention, but that's not a bet I need to go out on my way to target as well. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into the 9-to-5 bet of the day here today. But do want to remind you guys of the promo code that's currently going on the website. Use the promo code KEEPCASH and you get 20% off your first 9-to-5 month membership, guys. Take advantage of that. Great value. That will be going away at the start of the new year. All right, so getting into the 9-to-5 bet of the day. So this is going to be on PrizePicks. I'm trying to run out a correlated slip. I do think that this would be a good bet slip. So I think it was on the Christmas Day slate. Someone asked, hey, why are you just giving out like bets that you like rather than like a bet slip that you like? Well, that was more based off of that day. I kind of mentioned there was some game script bets that I like rather than like place them all in the same bet slip. I was trying to highlight my favorite bets on the day that you guys could use based off of your strategy as well, because there were a lot of demon bets and goblin bets I was recommending. Obviously, it really just depends on your strategy. For this one, I do think that this slip does work out well. I do think it correlates a decent amount. So one, we are using the best bet on the board as it sits right now, which is going to be Cole Kmet over 4.5 for his fantasy score. Then I do like DJ Moore to get over 5.5 receptions, a little bit better than doing Keenan Allen over 4.5 or Rome Odunze for over 3.5 receptions, mostly because those are goblin prop bets. And specifically, if you use that with this bet slip, it would reduce the payout even more. And part of the reason as to why this payout's being reduced is because I went ahead and I did do the Jason Myers over 1.5 field goals made, but I'm also attaching Geno Smith to get over 16.5 for his fantasy score. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is going to be because I'll show you guys, the underdog slip here as well. And that'll be because we are betting on the under then for Geno Smith of under 17.65 for his fantasy score on underdog. That's just a little bit too high in comparison. Looking at the average sportsbook data, it tells us that it should be a middle. Now, it's not that great. It's only a 1 for a prop line difference there, or about 1 for a prop line difference there. Not huge, but on a day, on a slate, and as I'm recording this, where we're not getting that many good prop bets specifically for Seattle, this is kind of the bet that I ended up on. And again, just going with DJ Moore here. If you guys like maybe going with Keenan Allen over 4.5 receptions or Rome Odunze, or pairing up 2 out of the 3 Bears pass catcher with a Seattle prop bet that you like, you can do that there as well. But that's going to do it, guys. Wish I could give you guys more concrete information on that Seahawks running back room situation, because again, I do think that's where we're going to be getting the edge, but I have no idea when those lines are going to be made available. Obviously, it depends on the Kenneth Walker news. That's going to be all for this video, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. It does about the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck. Merry Christmas if you guys are watching this on Christmas. If not, hopefully you guys had a good Christmas and Happy New Year. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.